What's up, you guys? My name is Aubrey and this is my channel, and today I want to give you guys kind of a status update on my Turo fleet. You see, about 2 months ago on January 31st, I published a video titled "My Turo Fleet is Falling Apart," and in that video I outlined all of the issues I was having at the time with my Turo fleet. Well, a lot has happened over the last couple of months regarding those issues, and I want to give you guys a status update on that. But in addition to doing a general status update on these cars, I also want to do a deep dive into my worst Turo investment ever. I want to talk about what that investment was, why it was such a mistake, what I could have done differently, and what you need to know in order to avoid that same mistake. So let's get started. Almost exactly 2 months ago, I made a video titled "My Turo Fleet is Falling Apart," and in that video, I outlined the issues I was having with nearly half of my Turo fleet. All of these cars were out of commission at that time because they were damaged, they need to be repaired, or they were potentially totaled. Now, in that video, I broke down the issues that these cars were having, but in that video, I didn't break down what I did to fix those cars. So that's really what I want to talk about today. Now, let's first start off with my green Hyundai Accent. In this previous video, I had talked about how my Hyundai Accent was damaged by a renter who hit a curb or a pothole or something so badly that she split my wheel in half and potentially caused suspension damage as well. I have never seen a tire get split in the way that this green Hyundai's tires were split. It was absolutely crazy. And as a result, I was fortunate enough to not have to do any suspension work on the vehicle, but the tire and the wheel both had to be replaced. When it came to the breakdown of the finances of this repair, I ended up breaking even because I was paid out about $250 for the tire and wheel, and the tire and wheel cost me about $250 to fix. So I was fortunate enough to break even, and I didn't lose money on this deal, but I didn't make money either. So it wasn't the best case scenario, but it certainly wasn't the worst. Since this issue happened, the car has been repaired and it is out on the road once again, and it hasn't had any issues since. Next is my red Ford Focus. Now, this car is a car that has had a ton of issues over the last 2 years, really because of the fact that renters abuse the crap out of this car. This car gets abused more than any other of my cars, and I think a big reason for that is because of the fact it's a lower quality car. It's not lower quality in the sense that it has mechanical issues, it's a sound mechanical car, but lower quality in the sense that it definitely isn't a looker, it's definitely an older car, and it's also a lower priced car. And because of this, I sometimes feel like it attracts the wrong audience, and as a result, this car gets abused quite a lot. In this video, this car had an issue because of the fact that a renter locked his keys inside of the car, and instead of calling AAA, Turo Roadside, or a locksmith, he decided to jam a piece of plastic into the lock to try to get the car unlocked. Well, to my surprise, it actually worked, and he was able to get the car unlocked. But after he jammed the plastic in the lock, he wasn't able to take it out. And as a result, the lock was permanently broken. Now, in this case, what we ended up doing is we ended up ordering a lock cylinder online for about $50. We then installed the lock cylinder ourselves, and then we hired a locksmith to come out and rekey the entire car. This ended up costing us about $150, not including our own labor. And Turo ended up paying out about $460 for this claim. So I ended up profiting about $310 from this damage claim. And since this happened, we've replaced the locks and the car has been good to go, and it actually hasn't had any issues since then. So it is back on the road, being rented out and making money. Next is my 2007 gray Ford Focus hatchback. Now, this was one of my favorite Turo cars. I don't exactly know why I liked it so much, but for some reason I did. Now, at the time that I recorded my last video, this car had recently been in an accident. The renter claimed that it was foggy, she didn't see where she was going, and she hopped a curb. But as a result, the airbags were deployed. Now, I actually made a standalone video about this car. It's titled "My Car Was Totaled on Turo Again." I will include a link to that down in the description below if you want to check that out. But this car did end up getting totaled, and I ended up being paid out for the value of this car. Now, this car was a big win, and this car is a prime example of how you can make money outside of simply renting your car out on a day-to-day basis, and that whenever it comes to getting a car totaled or damaged, you can actually profit off of that damage. In this case, I paid $2,700 for this car back in 2019. This car made me thousands of dollars over the last 1.5 to 2 year period of time. And whenever this car was totaled in January, I was paid out $4,400 for this car, just over $4,400, which means I made a profit off of the total loss of this vehicle. Now, this example with my Ford Focus is a really great example of how you can actually end up profiting off of the total loss of a vehicle. And that if you end up purchasing your vehicles below market value, it doesn't really matter what happens to them. Because as long as you cover your basis, as long as you ensure that you're covered by Turo insurance, then you will be paid out more than you paid for a vehicle once that car is damaged or totaled, which is a huge win. And this certainly was the case with my 2007 Ford Focus. Now, granted, I liked that Ford Focus. I was sad to see it go. It was a good performer. It was a good car. It never had any issues, but that's just the name of the game. Cars are going to get totaled, and you need to set yourself up for success whenever that does happen. Next is the newest addition to the fleet, which still has not been officially added, but it will be very soon. And that is a 2013 Hyundai Sonata that I purchased from my sister when she recently bought a new car. Now, this car on the surface looks like it's in rough shape. It has chipped paint, the clear coat is basically peeling off, and at the time that I recorded my last video, the interior was pretty dirty as well. Well, since recording that video, the interior has been detailed professionally, and it quite honestly looks the best that it's ever looked. We have not painted the car yet, but what we're going to end up doing is sanding down the car. We're going to end up painting it and clear coating it once again. We'll be doing this ourselves in our garage, and fortunately for me, HP is very good at painting cars, so we'll just do it ourselves. Now, I will be doing a video on this once we actually do it, so stay tuned for that, as that will be coming the next couple of weeks. Now, even though this car looks like it's in really rough shape, it's actually really mechanically strong. My sister bought this car while she was in college, and a couple of years after she bought it, there was a pretty significant hailstorm, which ultimately ended up damaging the clear coat of the car. Once the clear coat was damaged, it was kind of a domino effect from there, and the paint just kept getting worse and worse and worse. So even though the car looks like it's a complete mess, it actually is in really great condition. The paint is just a mess, and we're going to end up fixing that in the coming weeks, and then it'll be listed out on Turo. Next is my white Hyundai Accent. Now, this car has had quite a lot of issues on the Turo platform over the last couple of months. We actually bought this car in 2020. We had it listed on the platform for a couple of months, and then we took it off, and it hasn't been listed again because of the issues that it's having. Granted, the issues aren't actually that severe. In fact, over the holidays when my sister was here, she drove the car for a month with no issues, but the issues randomly come up, and it gets to the point where I don't feel comfortable sending out on a rental because I don't know when the issues will arise. Basically, the problem this car is having is it just stutters to start. Sometimes it starts and sometimes it doesn't, and you never really know when it's not going to start. Ultimately, with this car, what we ended up doing is we took it to a legitimate mechanic. Now, if you guys have seen my channel before, you know that my fiance HP and I do 99% of the work on all of our cars. HP is an extremely talented mechanic, and I am a good assistant, and I can also do basic mechanic work myself. And between the two of us, we can do 99% of the work that needs to be completed at the same caliber a mechanic can. But in some cases, it is simply beyond our knowledge, and we just simply don't know what's wrong. And this was certainly the case with the white Hyundai Accent. So earlier this week, we actually dropped the car off with our friend, and he's going to look at it over the next couple of weeks to see what the problem is. At this point, I'm not exactly sure what the issue is, I'm not sure how much it will cost, and I'm not sure the time frame it will take in order to fix it. But I will keep you guys updated as we get this car repaired and as we list it back on the Turo platform. Lastly is my Kia Rio, and this is my worst Turo investment to date. Now, I've been on Turo for a few years now. I've bought a lot of cars. I have looked at even more cars, and this is by far the biggest dud that I've ever purchased, and I simply dropped the ball when buying this vehicle. Now, I've been on Turo for a few years now. I've bought a ton of cars, I've looked at way more cars, and this car for sure is the one that I never should have purchased. I simply ignored too many red flags when buying this car, and it was a huge mistake. Now, I actually made a standalone video about this car back in December of 2020. It was actually December 16th, which was my dad's birthday, and that video is titled, "This Turo car has been a disaster, breaking down my worst Turo investment." And in that video, I broke down why this car was such a dud. And in that video, I talked about how I wanted to fix the car and I wanted to figure out what was wrong with it. Well, in that same video, you guys were loud and clear that you guys thought that it was a mistake to try to fix the car and that I should just cut my losses and sell that car. Well, as of a couple of days ago, I have done just that, and I finally sold the car that is considered my worst Turo investment of all time. Now, before we break down the exact details of why this is such a dud, let me go over the numbers. So I purchased this car back in 2020 for $2,860. While we had the vehicle, we put about $320 into the car, which I know doesn't sound like a lot, but given the fact that we do all of our work ourselves, meaning that the labor is free, spending $320 on parts parts for a car that's only worth about $2,800, that's quite a lot. And it felt like a lot of money as we were working on it, especially because of the fact that none of the work that we did ended up working to fix the issues it was having. That means all in, we spent about $3,180 on this car. When this car was rented out on Turo, which was only for a couple of months before we permanently took it off, it made about $1,300. And as of a couple of days ago, I sold this car for $2,300, which means that all in all, this car made about $420 the entire time that I owned it for the last year. Now, this on the surface is profit. We made $420, but that simply is not the case because we didn't take into account labor in this equation. And we definitely spent quite a lot of time looking at this car, diagnosing it, and trying to fix it in the last year that we owned it. And if we took those numbers into account, we would without a doubt have lost money on this transaction. Now, really, when it came to the Kia Rio, there were some significant red flags that we simply ignored. We went with a car we didn't know very well. If you guys have seen my videos in the past, you guys know that I'm a big proponent of sticking to what you know. Stick to the car manufacturers that you feel comfortable with. And in the case of HP and I, we feel comfortable with Ford and Toyota. The majority of our fleet are Toyota or Ford products, and we have found huge success with that. In fact, my personal car is a Toyota and HP's personal car is a Ford. The fact is, with this Kia, we veered away from this, and we veered away from the rule that we always preach to other people because of the fact that the price was so good and we thought that we were getting a good deal. And we really ended up hurting ourselves because of the fact that we didn't know the brand well enough to be able to effectively diagnose the issue and then fix those issues. Alternatively is the red flags that came up whenever we went to go view the vehicle. The vehicle had obviously had some pretty significant repairs done to the car. First of all, the car smelled absolutely horrible. It was as if somebody had been smoking 24/7 in that car for like the last year. It was such a significant smoke smell that whenever I drove home with the car and I got out of the car, it smelled like I had smoked. It was so severe. Secondly is the fact that all of the tires were mismatched, old, and needed to be replaced. This was an indicator that they just basically threw on any tires they had in order to make it drivable, and that they didn't really put in the effort, time, and the real energy to make this car really good again. Third is the fact that the engine bay was full of oil, and he had blamed this on the fact that he had recently done work to the car and he just didn't clean the engine bay, and we took this as the truth, and that simply wasn't the case. It most likely had a severe engine leak, and he may have fixed it, but he definitely didn't fix it all the way, and that was ultimately the cause of the problems that we ended up having with the car. I could go on and on with the issues that we had with this Kia Rio, but really at the end of the day, it came down to the fact that we didn't follow the guidelines that we have preset for ourselves. When it comes to buying cars for Turo, we have like a rule book that we follow, and we make sure that every single car we buy adheres to this rule book. And in this case of the Kia Rio, we knowingly veered from that rule book because of the fact we thought we were getting a good deal. And if we would have stuck to our guns, if we would have stuck to the rule book that we've been following for the last few years, we would not have purchased this vehicle, and thus we wouldn't have made the huge mistake that we then had to deal with for the last year. Honestly though, I'm just glad this car is gone, and I'm happy to have sold it for $2,300. And before you guys are concerned with the person that bought it, thinking that they're a victim of unknowingly purchasing a horrible car, I was super upfront with the fact that this car needed work, which is one of the reasons why it took nearly 3 months to sell it. I wanted to sell it to somebody who knew what they were getting into, and I didn't want to create another victim of a car that couldn't be repaired. So I made sure to tell every single person who looked at the car or expressed interest in the car the fact that the car needed a lot of work, and I didn't exactly know what was wrong with it. So we ended up selling it a couple of days ago to a gentleman that has a lot of experience with vehicles and can get it fixed for cheap. So it's a win-win situation. Honestly though, this is pretty much what's been going on with the Turo business for the last couple of months. This has been like a game of catch up since 2021 started, and as we're entering April, we are finally caught up with all the work that needed to be done, which just feels absolutely great. I know that whenever I publish these types of videos, kind of shedding a light on the negative aspect of Turo, a comment that I oftentimes get is the fact that this is more work than it's worth. Or I get comments saying, sorry, this is such a hassle. Or hey, maybe you should look at doing something else. Or maybe Turo isn't worth it. And that's really not why I'm making this type of video. It isn't to rag on Turo, it's not to be depressing, it's not to have a pity party. The reason why I make these videos really is to shed a really transparent light on what it's like to run a side hustle like Turo. The fact is, entrepreneurship, owning a business, making money, it's not all flowers and roses. There are things that come up, and there are some days where you are playing catch up. There are sometimes months when you're playing catch up. But the fact is, this is the reality of business, and it's just a part of playing the game. And as much as I love to talk about how much money I'm making or how great things are going, I think that it's as equally as important to show how things can sometimes be hard and how sometimes things don't go to plan. And I know with Turo over the last couple of months, this has certainly been the case. But like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, now that we are officially caught up, we are looking to expand once again with Turo. The goal was to get the fleet back to 100% and then expand from there. And now that things are back to where they need to be, we can start expanding how we want to, with the ultimate goal of getting to 20 cars by the end of the year. Really though, we have some exciting stuff in the works to not only grow the YouTube channel, but also grow the Turo fleet and also more effectively document this entire process as a whole. So if you guys are interested in learning more about that once I make the official announcement, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. That way you don't miss a single thing that I publish on YouTube. But with that being said, you guys, if you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, make sure to leave a comment down below. I do have a Turo course called the Car Sharing Masterclass, and in that course, I teach you everything you need to know about running a car sharing business as a side hustle. So if you're interested in checking that out, follow the link down in the description below. I will include a coupon code down in the comment section that will give you $25 off. But like always, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.